Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to Dial the Gate. My name is David Reed. Thanks so much for joining us for episode 109. Joseph Mallozzi is going to be joining us for this episode. I apologize for those who are watching. The screen resolution is kind of wonky. I'm going to have to figure that out after the show, but I reset something during the episode, and it's triggered everything weird here. Thanks again for joining us. So for this episode, if you like Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, it would mean a great deal if you click that like button. It really makes a difference with YouTube's algorithm and will definitely help the show grow its audience. And if you wouldn't mind, please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. Click the bell icon, and that will give you a notification in the future of the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next several weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. As this is a pre-recorded episode, as this is a live episode, rather, Joseph Mallozzi is going to be joining me live on Zoom, which means if you log into youtube.com/dialthegate, you'll be able to submit your questions to him, and I will be sharing those with him in just a few moments. Our moderating team is standing by to take those questions. So let's go ahead and bring in Mr. Joseph Mallozzi, the writer and executive producer of Stargate Atlantis. And hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm glad to have not been blown to Oz.
I bet.
To be perfectly honest with you, it was kind of crazy down here. So, but I'm really excited. We're moving further into the stretch, and you know, there's fewer seasons ahead than there are behind. And I'm interested to know, has this been a has this series presented you with some unexpected surprises in terms of the things that we've managed to bring up to the surface from memory? What has it been like going through this content over the past year with me, and has it been worth it so far?
No, it absolutely has been worth it, and it has been a lot of fun. I mean, growing up, my mother's nickname for me was the absent-minded professor because I just had a terrible memory. And you know, when you first invited me to do this trip down memory lane, I was like, oh my God, what will I be able to remember? It's amazing how many memories you've kind of jogged, and kind of watching some of the other interviews, like with Rob and Carl and the other writers, the other people who worked on the production. It's amazing how much it brought back, not just sort of the memories of what happened, but the feelings of being in those moments at that period in time. It all came back, and it's been a lot of fun. As the Japanese have a word for it. It's called natsukashi, which means it's almost kind of a familiarity of remembrance of things past, if you will.
Fondly.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, this reminds me of, this takes me back.
Huh. I wonder how similar that is to just nostalgia, because nostalgia is also a positive as well.
Yes.
But yeah,
it's funny. It's the Japanese have a word for almost anything, and it's very close to nostalgia. Yes, but not quite nostalgia.
What? This was obviously a very formative part of your time developing as a professional. What do you think? I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. At this point, you know what? Let me just bypass that altogether. We are in the last season that you did with both SG1 and Atlantis running concurrently. Now, you were more over on the SG1 side for season 10, correct?
correct.
Okay. And we already went and talked about that content. Now, for Atlantis Season 3, you submitted a couple of episodes here. At this point in the franchise, this is your third season of writing 40 episodes a season, which is still absolutely crazy. At this point, do you recall thinking to yourself, you know what, I think we can keep doing this. We figured out a stride. We've got the size of the writing staff that we need to pull this off. We have the resources of 2 shows that we're pooling together to make this happen. Or are you thinking, you know what, I don't know if I can do another one of these if SG1 got picked up for a season 11 with 20 episodes on Sci-Fi Channel?
It's amazing how humans adapt. But
yes.
I remember the first season, we did 40 episodes. I thought, there's no way we can do this. And we did it. And it's funny because at the end of that season, even though it was exhausting, I didn't really feel any more exhausted than I did just doing a single episode of SG1.
Wow.
There's just more scripts to write. And then we had, of course, Morton Garrow on board, and he was a script writing machine. and so really by the time season 3 came around, I honestly thought we'd be coming back for an 11th season for SG1, and we've discussed this in previous episodes. But I was fairly confident we'd be coming back, and no, I had no hesitation or concerns about producing another 40 episodes of television a year. Although, I look back now and I think to myself, wow, how is that possible? Especially after doing, my last 2 shows were 13 episodes a season, and they seemed overwhelming at the time. I just, looking back, I can't imagine sort of doing 40 episodes today.
I think that we've all been accustomed to we've had enough time in this new era of the reduced number of episodes for most of the shows that we watch. There's still a couple of shows out there that still do 20 or 22, but there really are few and far between. I think that by and large, I would say the quality of the shows that are selected, in terms of the stories that are selected to air from a pool of shows, from a pool of ideas that writers have gotten together, say, okay, well, we could, these are the really great ones. These are the kind of the okay ones. And these are, oh, man, if, these other things don't work out, we're going to have to go here. When you have a fewer number of hours, you pick from the top first, I would think, and that would give you, a greater reason to have a greater chance at getting more memorable episodes on the air if you're doing 10 as opposed to 20. They would have to be stronger overall.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think, you're talking about really, so there's a stark difference between a network television and streaming, where network television very much the 20 plus episode per season variety, and they tend to be more episodic in nature, whereas the streamers tend to be more serialized. And you're right, you do tend to tell a more compact story. It's very similar to, because the UK model, the 6 episode model, and as a viewer, I kind of prefer those models because, like you said, there's very little wheel spinning. You just tell the story. You have whatever 6, 8, 10, 13 episodes to tell your story, and so you tell it in as concise and as engaging a fashion as possible.
Do you look at it like, man, the networks, they really milked us for everything that we had back then so that they could have a block of syndication episodes? Or it was just the standard then and this was all we knew? And
no, it was a standard then, but like I said, it was an episodic storytelling, right? So one of the things that we loved about working on Stargate was that each episode was almost like a mini movie. It had its own beginning, middle, and end. And even though there were certain serialized elements over the course of a season, usually those episodes stood on their own, which is why they call them standalones.
Right.
And so, they were always a lot of fun to write because you just put everything on that page, just as I said, it was just kind of almost like a perfect whole that in that hour, or really more like 44 minutes and change. And so really it wasn't a matter of I go back to saying spinning our wheels, but of course there's certain episodes that maybe weren't as strong as other episodes, but they were never, people use the term filler episodes, and really that could apply maybe to a serialized storyline where you're not advancing the story. But when you're talking about an episodic structure, there's never really a filler episodes. They're all, individual episodes. Some may be stronger than others. You may have a, back in the day when budgets were tight, we would do the occasional clip show or the bottle episode. But even again, I look at Stargate and frankly Dark Matter, and two of the bottle episodes, A Window of Opportunity and what was the Dark Matter episode
with the time travel? What was it?
Oh my gosh, this is terrible. I can't even remember. But in any case, they turned out to be the fan favorites. All the Time in the World, maybe? That sounds familiar.
All the Time in the World, that's it.
Yes. Okay.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that there is inspiration that comes out of constraint? Do you think necessity really is the mother of virtue? Necessity is the mother of invention?
I think that has a lot to do with it. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that because you're thinking smaller, and by smaller I mean you're not thinking expansive, no big space battles, you're not traveling from one place to the other, you have to focus on character.
Right.
And I think as a result, that's why those episodes are so memorable, because they tend to be more character oriented and really more relationship oriented than anything. And so I think that's why they turn out to be fan favorites. And also, more often than not, they tend to be the humorous episodes as well.
That's a
certain amount of humor.
I want to look at some of the episodes that were done this season before we get to the two that you really focused on.
Yeah.
Sateda, Robert Cooper's masterpiece.
Yes, Robert Cooper's, I believe that's his first directing gig.
Actually, his first one was the Vala clip show in season 9.
Vala clip show?
Yes, where we visit her in the Ori Galaxy. Because he corrected me as well, because I thought Sateda, let me see, what was that episode?
Yeah.
Season 9. It's Crusade.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
Crusade so this was the first one he directed. This is
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was his first magnus opus, if you will.
Oh my gosh, yes. So
the first of his many magnus opuses, opi.
Magnum opi. This I think is a great example of an action episode that really is also a character piece when you boil everything else away. Yeah. So I think it's one of those that proves that, if you throw enough at something, enough XYZ at something, you can really have your cake and eat it too. What was your impression of Sateda when you sat down and really got to experience that after watching it develop?
Yeah, it was interesting. A couple of things. One was, I look back on it now, and Jason Momoa's Ronan, was a character that we kind of loved to explore through his backstory. Mm-hmm. So with Sateda, with Broken Ties, with Reunion, and it's something that we didn't do as much with other characters, interestingly enough. What I remember about this episode, more than anything, two things. One is the fact that I believe, was it episode 4 when it aired?
Yes.
Okay. It was episode 4. It was shot.
Good job.
As episode 4. Now I remember because the network didn't want to air it as episode 4. For some reason, they didn't like it. They wanted to push it back to like mid-season, and Rob just flatly refused.
That's his baby.
There was like a huge
Brouhaha.
clash. Yes. In the end, it ended up airing fourth, and the fans loved it. That I remember, and whenever we would watch the show, much to Rob's chagrin, whenever that Wraith with the goggles would come on screen, I would yell, "Wraith free swim!" And just
he does look like he's going for a dip.
Look. Yeah, it's like, okay, only Wraiths allowed in the pool.
Oh my gosh. That's true. But why? I mean, I'm trying to honestly look at it from the network's perspective. Episode 4, we're gonna fight you guys on this. We don't want it as episode 4. We think that episode 8, man, it's going to make all the difference in the world, making it number 8 or number 9, even better. What? Why?
Yeah,
why? What? Is there like? Do they look at like that month action episodes do better in that month when episode 9 would air? Where's their? What's going on?
I don't really recall the argument, but
okay.
I do know that one of the things sci-fi firmly believed in was that you have 3 episodes to capture an audience, and if you and those first three episodes have to be gangbusters, or else if the audience stays with you past that 3rd episode, then you've got them. This was episode 4, but I guess the reasoning was this early in the season, if first-time viewers will tune in, you want to give them the very best.
I see. And
it was kind of strange because Sateda is such a great.
That's right.
What was episode 5, by the way?
Episode 5 was Progeny, another one of my favorites. So with the Replicators, and Charles Emerson Winchester III.
Oh yes. Who drove up from Oregon?
He sure did.
Very nice guy.
Yeah, nice. Was that because? Oh, I thought he had lived in Seattle, so he drove up from Oregon.
Oh, was it Oregon?
He's definitely south.
Yeah.
So that's
south for us. Yes.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you about bringing the Replicators back in a new way, and one from a story perspective, behind the scenes perspective, and another from an in canon perspective. Which one would you like to tackle first?
Let's do story perspective.
Story perspective first. You have really run the Replicators not into the ground. Into the ground is not right, because I think they really ran their course, that version of the species through season 8 of SG1. They were ultimately responsible for helping to get rid of the Goa'uld. It was a very satisfying arc. And I remember having the discussion with Martin Garrow at the time of season 3 when you guys were tinkering about bringing them back. His first reaction, and I quote, was, Replicators. And then as you got further into it in discussing what you could do with it, Martin's reaction changed to Replicators. So what was the impetus for approaching that type of a race again and taking it forward into Atlantis?
I always go back to that 4th season, after season 4, and Paul sitting in my office and saying, how the hell are we going to do another season if the show gets picked up for a 5th season? Because all our episodes were very much kind of the standalone variety. And, as I said, we learned that there was that mythology to mine, which made coming up with stories easier. And so we would go back to the Replicators, but a franchise that goes, with 17 seasons, or even, back then, I think we were like 12 seasons in. It needs to, you want to maintain the familiar, you want to maintain sort of what the fans came for, but you also want to sort of grow and transform. And so the Replicators as a threat were a very interesting threat, but we kind of dealt with them in the 2-parter Reckoning, yeah. And bringing them back in the same manner would have felt like kind of undoing that in a way, and a bit of a step back. So rather than step back, we looked to step forward, and in order to do that, we decided to transform them as a threat. And I think they're kind of interesting, make them even more scary in some ways, in that they're able to communicate. And so that was very much an appeal, rather than sort of threatening you in kind of the standard way that the replicators threatened in previous episodes. They threatened you at a whole other level.
Okay. And I've been looking forward to asking this one, because it's one of the questions that have been kind of dancing around fandom over the years. And some people are like, oh, well, it's obviously this, or no, it's obviously that, and because reasons. Was it production's intent to make the modern replicators that we dealt with in SG1 descendants, in terms of their engineers and those who created them, descendants of the ones from Pegasus? Or are they just spiritual kind of successors? Because the way that I have always looked at it is that, well, who's Reese's father? It's Janus. It's got to be Janus, you know, or someone who created the replicators in the Pegasus galaxy. What was
so
your
as you were
intent?
ramping up that question, I was kind of smiling, because whenever I'm asked these questions, I usually can't answer them. I either don't recall, or I always like to sort of suggest, Brad or Robert would be perfect people to talk to about this, because especially Rob, the replicators were very much
That's true.
His babies.
Okay, so definitively you don't have an answer.
Absolutely do not have. Definitively do not have an answer.
Yeah, or you're just toying with me and say, you know what, I do have the answer, but it's not my answer to tell.
Isn't it more fun? Yeah, basically, if I wanted to save face, I would say something like, well, I could answer that question, but isn't it more fun not to know? And you'd be like, no, actually, it would be great to know. And then I'd be like, well, actually, I don't really have the answer.
That's perfectly fair as well. There's a lot of those circumstances where it's like, especially like with intent of like a story decision. Like I finished The Leftovers recently, and you're left with at the end, okay, what was the fate of all of those people that disappeared? I'm not going to tell you. So I get it. But I will ask that of Rob the next time that we have him on. Yeah. Common Ground is an episode where we really start seeing a different
Great
layer
personality.
of right.
Yeah.
Christopher Heyerdahl.
Amazing.
Spectacular casting decision. Did he read for Todd, or did you guys say, you know what, let's have this guy back? He's always excellent.
I don't recall, but I mean, he was great as what was his Athosian name?
Oh, Halling.
Halling, yeah, he was great as Halling, but I mean, Todd is he really delivered as Todd.
Was it whose idea was it? Do you recall that the Wraith could return life as well as take it away? That was an eye opener.
I think this was like a Ken Kupris.
Yes, Ken Kupris.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, he was new. So we remember we broke the story in the room. So I mean, I think it had to be either Brad or Robert.
Okay.
To come up with that particular idea in the room. It's sort of weird. I just love the idea of them being, that twist of them being able to take life, but also return it.
Mm-hmm. And it was a great kind of swing at the tee-up that was introduced in the previous mid-season two-parter with the Wraith worshippers. They're all young and vibrant, and it's like, okay, what's going on there? What can they possibly be getting from this relationship? Well, now we know, they're just letting them stay young. So I remember watching The Return Part 1, and we hunted and gathered ancients from the void between two galaxies, and we returned them to Atlantis. It really felt like it could play as a series finale.
Yeah.
what was and then having Rick come back for the two-parter with Robert
And
Picardo.
Bob Picardo, yeah.
Fantastic pairing there.
Yeah.
What was your feeling of those episodes and how they played?
Yeah, I mean, we always, you know, delivered big mid-season two-parters and then ended each season in a big way. So, yeah, I mean, those mid-season two-parters could have played as, you know, end-of-season episodes. It's just kind of interesting when I think back to how many different aspects of the mythology we were able to kind of mine, and how time distortion and time travel allowed us to really explore certain of those facets in kind of unexpected ways, like we did in this particular episode.
I think that I wish that time dilation had been played with a little bit more in Stargate. I think the only other one that I can think of besides this episode was a matter of I think it was a matter of time in season 2 with the black hole.
Wasn't there another episode? I thought there was an Atlantis
time dilation
episode involving time dilation where Shepard stepped through.
He stepped into the. Oh yes, you're absolutely right. That's right. That was season 2, and the episode is Epiphany.
Epiphany, yes. Okay,
you're absolutely correct. Good for you.
And then in terms of time dilation, not like an entire episode, but when Carter tricks 5, was it?
Fifth.
Yeah,
yes. That's another.
And traps him in a time dilation. You know why I remember those things? Because I'm the time travel, dilation king. So basically, I love, all those stories, all those twists, all those. So very much.
I think it's one of the things that's really scary about the implications of science fiction is that you can be trapped in your own personal hell for God knows how long, and everyone else is experiencing things in the blink of an eye. There's an episode of Black Mirror where it's used as a torture device to imprison someone for years and years and years in just a few moments, and what you won't say to get out of this out of that. This thing's nightmares are made of. Yeah,
there's a great anime called Voices of a Distant Star, I believe, where it's this couple that are separated, and this woman goes out to basically fight aliens in the furthest reaches of space, and she sends messages to her lover, and while she's off fighting battles, he's living his entire life on Earth.
Wow.
And the messages get it takes longer and longer for the messages to arrive, and it's really kind of a haunting.
And she's not aging by his comparison.
Yes, exactly. It's like a very short anime. I think it's like a half hour. But
Voices from a Distant Star.
I think Voices of a Distant Star or Voices from a Distant Star could be. Yeah.
Voices of a Distant Star, romance drama, 2002, Japanese science fiction original video animation short film. Oh, I'm down.
Well, how long is it?
Let me see here. Hoshinoko. Of a Distant Star. And of course, it's not telling me how long it is.
All right.
I'm seeing everything else, but it sounds really. That sounds great.
Worth your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I made a contribution this episode. Great recommendation.
25 minutes.
Okay.
25 minutes long.
I'm drinking a bit during this episode because I was out last night. The lovely and talented Roger Cross.
Oh.
SG1 Dark Matter. He wrapped up on his recent season on Coroner, and so he was like, "Hey, let's get together." And I got together with him and Ivan Bartok, who was a co-exec on Dark Matter.
Absolutely.
Went out for Jamaican food and drinks. And so I've been like wildly thirsty all day. So apologies.
No, you're all good. And while we are doing some shout outs, I believe it is Ben Browder's birthday today.
It is Ben Browder and Peter Kalamis' birthday today.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, yes. Happy Ben Browder and Peter Kalamis Day.
Happy birthday to you all, gentlemen. Absolutely. Two great folks.
They are absolutely great.
The big thing, really, that I think sticks in everyone's mind for season 3 of Atlantis, the death of Beckett.
Yes.
Sunday is particularly close to my heart because Martin Garrow and I were pretty chatty at this point during the show's production, and he had talked to me about this day off idea that he had since basically season 1, but there was no jeopardy in it. So he's like, well, I mean, what can we do? He had loved Elephant, the movie. And I had recently seen it. It's I won't spoil it for anyone. I suggest that you just go and watch it cold. But it's
I remember seeing it. Yes,
very intense. It's not for kids.
Yes,
but it deals with this what unfolds, and if you go into it cold, you only find this out as you watch it. Is you're watching the same sequence of time told from different perspectives. And then near the end, it's like, oh crap, this is
where we are. Yes,
this is what's happening. And it's a brilliant film, and his kind of spiritual homage to it with Sunday was in many ways equally pulling on the heartstrings with the loss of someone that we have all grown to care about if we've watched the show from the beginning at this point. Tell us about, being in that room and giving birth to this idea of having a relatively benign situation be the trigger to wake us up to the fact that we can lose anyone at any time.
I remember
on the frontier of this.
I remember Martin struggling with the story, and exactly that. Everybody thought, it's great, it would be fun to explore, but there is no jeopardy. And he knew he had to kill someone off at the end. And I'm not sure if I misremember, but he didn't have the person who would die, as he sort of outlined it, as we were outlining it. And, and it had to be, it couldn't just be a guest actor. It had to be someone that the audience connected with. And ultimately ended up being Paul. And, I thought it was a beautiful episode. I thought that final scene with McKay, looking out the water and Beckett slow fading was like incredibly touching. I just kind of wish it hadn't been exploding tumors.
Well, Jason has the line, exploding tumors. You got to be kidding me.
Right. Yeah.
Do you recall whose idea it was for Beckett?
I believe there was some discussion, I think.
Okay. Or was it a group call?
It was not a group call.
It was not. Okay.
No.
Well, we don't have to hang anyone out to dry.
It's okay. But I remember after, the season wrapped and we were at a wrap party, and I told Paul, I'm like, hey, and he was kind of bummed because he had,
of course, he lost the job.
Said, this is how we're going to bring you back. If, who knows what the future holds. And I pitched him at that wrap party. So, in my mind, Beckett was gone, but not for long. That's the beauty about science fiction. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's great because no one ever dies in sci-fi, but it's also a pain in the ass and kind of tends to blunt those, the beauty of those moments and those episodes, because ultimately nobody ever dies in sci-fi unless you decide, that's that.
I'm looking forward to discussing this with you in next season because I have some strong opinions.
All right.
I'd like to share those opinions with you next year.
Excellent.
And kind of put myself out, to fall on the sword, because there's going to be plenty of people who will disagree with me. But yeah, I loved this season because it was really the SG1 is in season 10 and is definitely moving into, so the shows are diverging more and more into their own identities. I think Atlantis's humor was clicking a lot better this season, and I think just the performances were strong. I can't pass Tori in the real world. You know, I think that performance is solid, and I go back and watch that. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies with, her kind of situation. We can all relate to the fear of losing our minds, and all of us have known someone who has, had some kind of a circumstance where they weren't the same person that they were at one point previously in their past, or when they were younger, for instance. A lot Alzheimer's and dementia. That's not exactly what this is. But that was a scary episode, and it was cool.
It was a great episode. Was that a Carl Binder joint?
The real world was Carl Binder.
Yeah,
you got it.
He could always tell those great, kind of really heartfelt, character-centered stories. And so, and also, I mean, Tori's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And was fabulous in this episode.
I remember going to set for season 3, and Irresistible was in production. And this had been one that Darren and I had not heard of. We usually get a pretty reasonable lead on like episode titles and very, very tentative summaries at this point in production when it was being shot earlier on in the year. And I'm like, this is brand new. Who is it? Oh, that's Richard Kind on set. Okay. And we asked Brad, like, who is Lucius? And he said he's kind of the Harcourt Fenton Mudd of Atlantis. It's like, okay. So we've got a trickster. And what an interesting character.
Yeah. Richard Kind was amazing. I like him a lot. He's super talented, very funny. He, there's certain instances where he just kind of improvised. I remember that those back in the days when I had my chocolate parties,
right?
Where I would, bring in chocolates from all over the world and invite the cast and friends. And he was in town, I think for this one, or was it the sequel? And so I invited him, and he was like just so blown away. And even after his appearance, he would send me emails. He'd be like, "You got to check out this ice cream place in Cincinnati." Great guy.
What do you think about would you have done another episode with him? You think if there was availability, or do you think that
I think we did, didn't we?
After, and I'm going to get to Irresponsible in just a little bit here, but would you have done more with him in season 4 or season 5 if the proper story had come up, or was there one and he just wasn't available? Because I was always interested in this character.
Yeah, no, there was some discussion. In fact, actually, I remember sort of floating the idea of Lucius and bringing back Princess Harmony, and trying to come up with a story that would pair them. We just kind of never came up with the story.
Oh, that's cool. So your episodes for this season are Misbegotten and Irresponsible. And I remember you going back and forth on the title for Misbegotten. It was originally going to be The Begotten, and then you went to Misbegotten. The Atlantis team must decide the fate of a colony of Wraith. They have turned into humans. And Dr. Weir must defend her leadership when she's evaluated by the IOA. So you've got two things happening. You've got the Pegasus Galaxy drama, and then the Milky Way Galaxy drama.
Yeah, always love those types of stories where you've got two things going on that kind of dovetail at the end. I also like those kind of moral / ethical dilemmas that very much. It goes back to sort of our first episode, Scorched Earth. Where we're dealing with, whose planet is it anyways? And in this case, it's, come to think of it, I mean, the seeds of some of the themes I touch on here, we touch on in Dark Matter as well. This idea of sort of identity and are you a product of your environment, or, are people, inherently evil? So yeah, I mean, it was a fun episode with some, at times, very bad wigs.
Well, I mean, you went with what you had, that's...
Yeah. It just, there were so many of them at the end of the day. We're like,
That's such a point. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Michael played by Connor Trinier, really ended up being one of the best foils for Taylor, for Shepard. Connor really, I think, came into his own throughout. Well, I guess not just specifically season 3, but throughout the entire run. Did he with you guys take the character in places that you didn't entirely expect?
Yeah, I mean, he was, we discussed this in previous episodes.
Yeah.
When you write a role for a character or an actor, and whether they come back or the character comes back, really, a lot of it has to do with their performance. Do they pop? And Connor as Michael really popped. And of course, it goes back to that first episode, again written by the amazing Carl Binder,
right?
That really sets up a really interesting, again a dilemma, and this kind of just takes it a step further. But in so doing, you're kind of cementing him as not your typical villain. He's a bad guy. Very good reasons for doing what he does.
Tell us about Irresponsible. We have one last time. Well, okay, one last living time, I should say. Akostas Kolya, who was probably my favorite villain in terms of his relationship with Shepard, which is played actually really beautifully in season 5 in an episode that we'll eventually get to. But why did he die? Why was that a decision that was made?
Yeah, I think back, and I think we wanted some sort of like a big moment for the end of the episode. In retrospect, it wasn't a great way for him to go. And just for many reasons, that episode it didn't work on sort of many levels, from basically not being able to get the right location. We were going to actually shoot in, it was a town. It was actually a Western town. I forget what it was called, something like, anyways. And so we're like, we've got the perfect place for it. It's going to be like, we're going to be doing a Western. And then prep week came up and they checked it out and the place was falling apart. They were like, it's danger. We can't go there. So we have to look for another place. And we ended up, I'm not sure what it's called, Fantasy Gardens or something, where it's like a pastiche of all these different architectures, and that didn't work well. And then there's that final duel where Shepard is facing off against Kolya, and the rest of the team are like right behind him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I remember, watching it like, after the fact, or seeing the dailies, and I'm like, why are they standing directly behind him?
There's a bullet heading their way.
And I forget, I think it was Martin was word at the time was like, well, they really argued that they wanted to back Shepard. They literally back him, or figuratively back him. And it just kind of didn't make sense. And then, for Kolya to go out that way now in retrospect, it's not like, it was not worthy of the character. But, again, in my mind, I was like, well, this is science fiction, so there's a possibility to bring him back. And we did bring him back in a way in season 5, but, there could have been a way to bring him back for real in a season 6. But
the location by itself is great. You guys used it in revisions. You may have used it one other time, if I'm not mistaken. The Western town that you're talking about, would that have been the town that was seen in, like, for instance, like Beast of Burden? You've been going back there, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I loved the return of the ancient personal shield device. Of course, Lucius would have found one and then used it to make himself out to be a hero. Richard Kind was it was nice to have him in the show. He's, I think, the second actor behind French Stewart, or he was
From
the
the
first
original
actor from the
series,
original
right, from
feature
the
film.
movie. Yeah.
So kind of a nod there.
Yeah.
I loved the moral conundrum that was introduced with the finale, First Strike. You have Weir talking with Taylor and saying, you know what, I'm sick and tired of these people coming in. It seems like every year at this time her warranty tends to be up, where the powers that be back on Earth kind of set her aside for a military objective. And in this case, it's one that's, I understand on one side, but on the other side, morally dubious if you consider the replicators to be sentient, to nuke a huge chunk of their planet, where admittedly warships are being developed, and leave ourselves open ultimately to an attack that results in us having to depart Lantia for the wider Pegasus galaxy. Tell us a little about First Strike and wrapping up that season.
Yeah, I mean, we always went out big, and this was pretty big. Who was the writer?
First Strike was written by, you think so? Yeah, let me double check. Yeah, it was Garrow. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, we just wanted something big, and again, everything, as you said, all those storylines we've been building on throughout the season just come together in a kind of an explosive way in this finale. I remember Rob Cooper arguing against abandoning Atlantis. When do we end up abandoning Atlantis? Is it in this episode or the premiere?
Abandoning Atlantis altogether?
Sorry, so not abandoning Atlantis, abandoning the planet.
The planet? Yeah, that's this episode. We leave.
Yeah. And Rob was really argued against it, and we're like, why are you so, adamant?
Attached.
He's like, he goes, what about the whales?
Oceans.
Yeah,
oh, that's
the whales.
True too.
We saved the whales, and now
right.
and I was like, well, I don't know, and I pitched the idea that they didn't like, where basically, we get they fly off, and then it turns out the whales end up sprouting wings and flying off, like sort of super evolving and flying off into space. I nicknamed them Wangels, but nobody liked that idea, so sadly the whales perished.
Oh, jeez. No, it just shows how, the replicators have teeth, and they're going to be an enemy that we're going to have to deal with. And we don't even make it to the end of next season to deal with them. We have to take care of them rather quickly, because they are spreading like mad. We thought the Wraith were a problem. These folks are about to take us all down. It's a great couple hours of television, First Strike, and then Adrift in season 4. And I'm looking forward to talking with you about the departure of Tori and bringing in Amanda Tapping. Just a great season. I think as for me, as Atlantis progressed, overall, the number of stories that I fell in love with, as opposed to the number of stories that I was just kind of on the fence about, were really increasing as the show went along and found kind of its unique energy.
Yeah.
So
as we grow more confident in the characters and their storylines, I think it's the way with most shows. So
that's absolutely fair. So I have some fan questions for you.
Excellent.
Alec Brownie has a dark matter question. It was alluded that alternate universe Marcus was losing his grip. Why? Does this have to do with losing his Sarah and or knowing that there's an android Sarah around? Sorry, Stargate fans.
Possibly. I mean, we never really explored. I mean, I forget who said he was kind of losing his grip. I think it was probably alternate Portia, and she was basically could have been just shit talking, because that crew just the knives were out, and they were very quick to put it in each other's backs. So I don't believe everything she says.
Okay, that's fair. Ugly Pig. Hello, Ugly Pig. How familiar, Joe, were you with the franchise before you were hired to write for the Little Lulu show? Didn't see that
Very
coming, did you?
familiar in that I mean, like most shows. I mean, you do your research, you read the Bible, and I don't know if we developed that one internally, like I did a lot of the other shows, but I think we put together a Bible for it. So, I mean, we launched the show, and I think my former writing partner Paul story edited one of the later seasons. So I did write a couple of episodes for them, but so I was pretty familiar, having read the comic strips and having participated in the development of the show internally.
Jay Savitri how familiar with are you, and have you had a chance to play perhaps the new Stargate role-playing game, and what are your thoughts on it?
I have no thoughts. It looks interesting, but I have not played the game. I don't play very many games, to be honest with you.
Understood. What do you think about the show continuing to exist in terms of its merchandise? Do you think that that's important to keep the vision alive?
Yeah, I think it's important just from merchandising and very much kind of the online fandom. Continue to let Amazon now know that you want a new series, and they'll give us a new series. It's just a matter of what shape that new series will take.
George Fotis Dramasiotis. Sorry, George, I butchered that. Can you please ask Joe? Oh, so Joe, what sci-fi trope do you love repeatedly watching, and which ones just drive you nuts?
Well, I mean, the obvious is the time loop. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for Dark Matter, the time loop episode, I ended up doing a deep dive and watching like 24 time loop episodes across various shows, and they were all, I mean, some were better than others, but they were all a lot of fun. So the time loop is my favorite. In terms of what I don't like, it's kind of tough, because really it comes down to the execution in many cases. I mean, the cliches are just kind of annoying if they don't bring something new. You can take an old chestnut and kind of turn it on his head and deliver a show. The great thing about sort of kind of these standard tropes is that the audience already knows them, so you can surprise them by setting them up in a way that you think that the audience believes it's going to go, and then just kind of rug pull the audience, which is what kind of did with the time loop episode.
Yes.
On Dark Matter. But I'm trying to think in terms of like tropes, nothing off the top of my head. I guess I'm not a huge fan of what do you call the trope, the chosen one?
Okay.
The chosen one trope,
like prophecy.
Sort of,
the prophecy.
well, basically,
says that
it is fated. You will be the one to
that's
free our people,
that's
etc.,
fair.
etc. Yeah.
That's when you really think about it, that's used a lot in a lot of lot of our,
mostly in fantasy.
That's true too.
Yeah.
Can I share mine with you? Now that okay.
Yeah.
Where we get a ton of character development and explore the characters in a whole new way, and time resets, or it wasn't them, or some such that everything resets back to the way it was before.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones that always
for
frustrate
me, I guess yes and no. It really depends. I mean, if in the SG-1 finale.
Yeah. Teal'c remembers.
That's an example of kind of giving it a bit of a twist. You have a character who remembers,
right?
And so it's a bittersweet, and even though it's been undone, it still have certain ramifications, certain consequences, which
true.
I love. But yeah, very much. I'm not a big fan of it. We just go back to step one. It's just a waste of time.
Voyager did this, another one of my favorites, with Year of Hell, which is I think 2 of the best hours of that show put on and completely reset. And there's another one where it's not even them; they're Mercury looking gunk that end up in space, and it's like, oh, it wasn't them the entire time either. But also with Continuum, you do the same thing where Mitchell potentially remembers because he has a photo of him and his granddad on his locker. So that was always, I was like, oh, if SG1 came back in some way, I would have liked a little tale to explain what he knew and what he didn't there. So that dude right there, Joe, regarding Irresponsible, did you guys set out to write an episode where Kolya his character was resolved and the rest of the episode was formed around it, or did his death occur when setting
his death very much occurred as almost, I have to say, not an afterthought, but once the main story had been thought through.
Got it.
We needed a satisfying conclusion.
That makes sense. Eva says, would you have gone fishing with Carson in Sunday?
I would have definitely gone fishing with Carson or Paul McGillian. Not that I'm much of a fisherman. I don't really enjoy fishing, but I very much enjoy their company.
Yeah, so. Agreed. Elizabeth Lee, what are the odds of an SG1, SGA, SGU story being continued and woven together at some way in the future? Were you guys given the chance to do that? I suppose that's more of a Brad question.
Yeah, it is more of a Brad question. And I think one of the elements of the SG1 revolution, it wasn't SG1 revolution. I think there was even some thought to doing like a wrap up. Was it a universe? I guess it would have had to be in a universe movie where elements of SG1 and Atlantis end up gating onto Destiny to help in a rescue mission.
Brad did allude to this at one point, that he said, if there was, if universe could not be resolved in its like 5-season arc, that Stargate Command and Atlantis would pool their resources to save Destiny, which I think would have been terrific.
Yeah.
William Aarons, was it ever proposed that Todd be transformed into a human for a period of time?
No, I felt we kind of did that with Michael, and he was such a great, unique character. I felt it almost feels like having Todd do that he would just kind of be walking well-trodden ground, if you will, and just Todd as Todd is just so glorious that ultimately, no, we never took that seriously.
That's fair.
That option seriously. Yeah.
Peace Writer, this is a little bit before your time, but I remember you discussing it in Q&As a lot. Ritu Charlie, was there ever a nugget of an idea of returning to Ritu Charlie?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Philippa Kennett, time dilation and time travel are cool, but time reverse, like Tenet, is insane. Would you consider writing stories based on that concept?
I haven't seen Tenet.
Really?
Yes.
Shame, Joseph. That's
really
you need to see it. Yeah.
Really,
at least from an educational perspective of science fiction, I thought it was an excellent exercise of well, anytime that I watch a Christopher Nolan movie, with the exception of a couple, it's mental gymnastics for one thing. It's a really good exercise. You just haven't managed to see it yet, or just
so it all makes sense in the end for you. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because have you heard that it doesn't?
Maybe.
Okay. All right, that's fair. What about that Sabina Pilchova? What about episode 200, and in particular that wedding scene? Any jokes or interesting behind the scenes info? Did you have to convince Richard and Amanda to do it?
No. I think they both very much look forward to doing it, and then I know Michael very much look forward to his little cameo in that scene as well. So it's a tip of the hat to both the shippers and the slashers.
Absolutely. She doesn't show up. They may think that you and I are.
Just the fact that he calls her Carter on his
That's
on
right.
his wedding day is awesome.
No, she calls him I think Colonel or Sir, and he's like, "Hey, we're married. We're getting married." He's like, "Oh, sorry, Jack." That was great. Sir Falheim 00. If the SG program is revealed to the world, would you hire David to play the role of a journalist?
Absolutely.
Oh my
Why
God.
not?
Duja 89. Any regrets not utilizing McKay and Mrs. Miller and Dow of Rodney to make Zelenka a more prominent character? He was always a foil for Rodney.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I love David Nichol. Loved Zelenka. I think, we just had so much going on with the other characters that, at times it was just kind of hard to service everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not a regret. I mean, it would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. And last one for you, Teresa MC. Do you think Atlantis has more secrets to reveal?
Absolutely, it does. We had actually planned in very loose terms, a sixth season. We kind of we're looking ahead to bringing Atlantis back to the Pegasus Galaxy and telling more stories. And then sadly, we were canceled. We never got the opportunity.
I would love to have like a San Diego Comic-Con panel or some kind of reunion of the writers, of you guys to sit down and break, a what if season 6 of Atlantis or some such. Mm-hmm. I would like had you taken a different direction.
That would be like a marathon. In order to break an entire season, you would be there, a good 2 weeks.
Okay, well maybe.
Sorry, not break. I mean, come up with the stories. I think in terms of breaking an entire, that would take 3 months.
Wow. Okay.
And that's actually that's very short for. We were always very quick at breaking. A lot of 10, 13 episode shows go at least 4 months breaking their seasons.
Or maybe breaking, a 2-parter.
Right.
So I would love to see just something like just everyone get a chance to get back together, preferably in the same room, and just sit down and spin one more story together.
It would be interesting that bringing back those dynamics because I always mention the fact that writers are good at 3 things: writing, spinning, and pitching, and it's rare that you have a writer who's very good at all 3. So, it would be interesting and writers change over time as well.
That's true. You guys evolve.
It'd be interesting to see sort of how those dynamics changed after, was it 10 years?
It's been a while.
Yeah,
absolutely, it has. Well, Joe, I really, really appreciate you once again taking the time to sit down and talk with us. This is it's always exciting to have you on and share some more nuggets as we progress. I've really found this manner of looking at the series to be extremely rewarding because it's been so methodical, and being able to look back over these previous episodes where we've done and see how all the bricks and mortar have built to the position where we are, not just for each individual show, but all of them together to kind of form the tapestry of the universe as you guys have created it. And thank you once again for being part of that.
No, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. I mean, like I said, I've kind of phased out any further podcasts or interviews for the time being, but I make an exception for this one because it's unique and a lot of fun. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, you have a wonderful holiday season and a good
Thank
new year.
You too, and everybody there.
Thank
out
you.
there.
And
happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, and I'll be reaching out to you really soon to get a January date nailed down.
Great.
So none of this last minute crap, I swear.
All right. Bye.
My best to you guys. Best to wife and pupper.
I will.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Joseph Mallozzi, writer and executive producer of Stargate Atlantis. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I apologize for the weird screen formatting. I have this to fix before our next program starts up here with Mac Martin, the lead game designer for the Stargate's SG-1 RPG. My name is David Reed, and you are watching Dial the Gate. And we are brought to you every week for free, and we do appreciate you watching. But if you want to support the show further, buy yourself some of our themed swag. It is the holiday season after all, and we are into giving gifts. We are now offering t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, and hoodies of all ages, as well as a variety of cups and other accessories in a variety of sizes and colors at dialthegate.com. From the merchandise tab, you can click on a specific design to see what items are being offered. Checkout is fast and easy, and you can use your credit card or PayPal. Just visit dialthegate.com or go straight to dialthegate.com/merch. And thanks so much for your support. And if you like what you've seen in this episode, give us a click with that like button. It really makes a difference with YouTube's algorithm and continues to help grow the audience. We will be back in just about 45 minutes with Mac Martin, the lead game developer on the Stargate SG-1 RPG. He wrote the book, and we're going to be bringing him in just a few minutes. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate my moderating team, Summer, Tracy, Keith, Jeremy Reese, Anthony, my producer, Linda Gaber Fury. Big thanks to Frederick Marcoux, our web developer, and Jeremy Heiner, my my webmaster. I'm David Reed for Dial the Gate. See you on the other side.